Now it remains to show that God knows even evil. For when good is known, the opposite of evil is known. But God knows all particular goods, to which evils are opposed. Therefore God knows evil. In addition, the aspects of opposites in the soul are not opposites. Otherwise, they would not be at the same time in the soul, nor would they be known at the same time. Therefore, the reason by which evil is known is not opposed to good, but rather belongs to the reason of good. If therefore in God, because of his absolute perfection, all the reasons for goodness are found, as has been proved above, it remains that there is in him the reason by which evil is known, and so is also the cognizance of evils. Again, truth is the good of the understanding, for it is from this that any understanding is said to be good, because it knows the truth. Now it is not only true that good is good, but also that evil is evil. For just as it is true to be what is, so it is true not to be what is not. Good understanding therefore also consists in the knowledge of evil. But since the divine intellect is perfect in goodness, it cannot lack any intellectual perfections. Therefore the knowledge of evils is present to him. Further, God knows the distinction of things as was shown above. But in the sense of distinction there is a negation, for they are distinct, one of which is not the other. Hence also the first, which are distinguished by themselves, include the negation of each other, by reason of which negative propositions are immediate in them, as there is no quantity of substance. Therefore God knows the negation. But privation is a kind of negation in a determined subject, as in 4 metaphysics is shown. Therefore he knows deprivation, and consequently evil, which is nothing else than the privation of due perfection. In addition, if God knows all kinds of things, as has been proved above, and is also allowed and proved by certain philosophers, it is necessary that he knows their opposites. Also because the kinds of certain kinds are opposites, and also because the differences of the genera are opposites, as is evident in Metaphysics 10. But in contraries is included the opposition of form and privation, as we find there. Therefore it is necessary that God should know privation, and consequently evil. Still, God knows not only form but also matter, as was shown above. But matter, since it is a being in power, cannot be fully known unless it is known to which its power extends, as is the case with all other powers. Now the power of matter extends to both form and privation. For what can be can also not be. Therefore God knows privation, and thus he knows evil as a result. Again, if God knows anything other than himself, he will know best what is best. Now this is the order of the universe, to which all particular goods are directed as to the end. Now in the order of the universe, there are certain things which are for the removal of harm, which might come from certain others, as is evident in those things which are given to animals for defense. Therefore God knows such harms, therefore he knows evil. In addition, in us, the knowledge of evils is never reproached according to that which is in itself knowledge, that is, according to the judgment which we have about evils, but by accident, according to the fact that through the consideration of evils, one is sometimes inclined to evils. But this is not in God, because he is unchangeable, as was shown above. Nothing therefore prevents God from knowing evil, and this is in harmony with what is said of wisdom. 8. That malice does not overcome the wisdom of God. Proverbs 15:11 it is said, hell and destruction before the Lord. And in the Psalm, my transgressions are not hid from thee. And it is said in Job 11:11, he himself knows the vanity of men, and when he sees iniquity, does he not consider it? But it must be known that the divine intellect has a different way of knowing evil and privation, and our intellect has a different way. For when our intellect knows each thing by each of its own and different species, it knows what is in act by an intelligible species, through which the intellect becomes act. Hence also he can know power, inasmuch as he is sometimes in power to such a species. so that as he knows act by act, so also he knows power by power. And since power is of the nature of privation, for privation is negation, the subject of which is a being in power, it follows that our understanding must in some way know privation, inasmuch as it is born to be in power. Although it may also be said that from the very knowledge of the act follows the knowledge of power and privation. But the divine understanding, which is in no way in power, does not know the privation in the manner aforesaid, nor anything else. For if he knew something by a species which is not himself, it would necessarily follow that its proportion to that species would be like the proportion of power to act. Hence, it is necessary that he himself understand only by the species which is his essence, and consequently that he understands himself only as he first understood. By understanding himself, however, he knows other things, as was shown above, and not only acts but powers and privations. And this is the meaning of the words which the philosopher puts in 3 de anima, saying, either how does he know evil or blackness? For in a certain way he knows the contrary. Now the knowing power must be there and must be in him. But if something does not have its opposite, that is, in potential, it knows itself and is actually inseparable. Nor is it necessary to follow the exposition of Averroes, who wants it to follow from this that the intellect, which is only an act, cannot in any way know privation. But the sense is that it does not know privation through the fact that it is in potential for something else, but through the fact that it knows itself and is always in action. Again, it must be known that if God knew himself in such a way that, knowing himself, he did not know other beings, which are particular goods, he would in no way know privation or evil, because there is no privation opposed to the good which is itself, since privation and its opposite are born to be about the same thing, and thus no privation is opposed to that which is a pure act, and consequently not evil. And supposing that God knows himself alone, knowing the good that is, he himself will not know evil. But since knowing himself, he knows that the beings in which they are born are privations, it is necessary for him to know opposite privations, and evils opposite to particular goods. It must also be known that just as God, by knowing himself without the discourse of the intellect, knows other things, as was shown above, so also it is not necessary that his knowledge be discursive if he knows evils through good things. For good is like the reason for the knowledge of evil, wherefore evils are known by goods, as things by their definitions, not as conclusions by principles, nor does he yield to the imperfection of divine knowledge if he knows evils through the privation of good things, because he does not say that evil exists, except in so far as it is the privation of good. Wherefore, according to this mode alone, it is knowable. For each thing has as much of being as it has of knowability.